Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode from the MVP Connect series. My name is Rashmita, and I am the event planner for Microsoft Reactor India. This session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. But before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat section will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. So please feel free to drop all your questions in the chat section. I would now like to welcome Swamy, our speaker for today's session. He is an aspirant software architect and currently works at Applied Information Sciences. He loves to learn about new technologies, but for now, I will hand over to Swamy to begin the session. Let me bring him into the stream. Hey, hi Swamy.
Hey Rashmita, good evening. How are you doing today?
Good, good evening. I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good and pretty much excited for this session because there are a lot of moving pieces and I'm all excited for this session.
Awesome, awesome. So let me bring in your screen and yeah, over to you.
Thanks so much. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining. And there are a couple of links, learn modules, MS learn modules that will give more information. And also the GitHub links. Rashmita will be sharing those links. And just to give extra space for the content, I will remove myself so that we will get extra space on focusing purely on this content. Okay, so thank you so much for joining. This is my main GitHub Vishipilor GitHub link and the speaker series for 2024. That is this main link. Here I'll have all these links, all the sessions where I speak. I'll have it here. Today's session is 123 Microsoft Reactor, and if you go here, it will be the Microsoft Reactor session. Okay, so let me come back to my uh, local laptop, and let's spend one quick minute. I've given the YouTube URL and the meetup URL, MS Learn module also. And what is that we are going to do today? And let's see that. So let's see. I'm still a learner. Apologize if I do any mistake. That's one thing. And please fasten your seatbelt because we are going to do a lot of things today. So let me switch back to my local laptop. We'll go through the big picture. Then we'll see some of the changes which we did it to the Python Flask API because nowadays the software itself is evolving pretty fast. So those few changes we will see from the OpenAI perspective, nothing else. And we'll look at the Blazor 7. I didn't touch the Blazor 7 one because my major focus was on bulleted point 4 and above. We'll look at the SQL script and SQL Server database in Azure as well as Azure Data Studio. And we'll spend some time to see .NET 8 minimal API to store and retrieve the country information. And we'll integrate Python Flasks, .NET 7, Blazor Server admin app, and the minimal API. And we'll see how the content is being sent from the Azure OpenAI to Python Flask to Blazor Server admin app to .NET 8 minimal API to SQL Server. Okay, then we'll see the client app and the end-to-end solution. I mean, this solution I'm going to develop over a period of time. Rest of the year I'll add a small features, but at least I'll explain what is that we are going to do at this point of time. You see, as a user, we will be hitting this one React app, or this is admin, this is customers. So admin, he will try to search a country, and that goes and hits the Python Flask API, which in turn goes and speaks to the Azure OpenAI. and gets the required information to the user. And admin of this gimmicks travels. So the admin then sends that country information to a .NET 8 minimal API, which will store the data in SQL Azure. And there will be a React customer application which goes and talks to this .NET 8 will come in here. So this is as of today. And what is that which is going to come in future? So in future, there will be a background job. At this point of time, whatever the country information which we are retrieving, we need to have the flag of that country. So if you see that right now, I'm using a blank image here, but it should be replaced with the uh, flag of that particular country. And I don't want we to go and search somewhere else. Let's use the artificial intelligence to generate the flag of that one. So that will be one functionality which will be adding it. So that's the thing which is coming up. But as of today, we will be seeing all these moving pieces. If you see, it's an end-to-end solution with OpenAI or artificial intelligence. So we have Python Flask, we have Azure OpenAI, we have Blazor 7, Blazor.NET 7, and .NET 8 minimal API, and React 14 and sorry React 18 and Next.js 14. So it's a, I don't want to use a high sounding word as enterprise grade solution, but a small solution, but it's a distributed or microservices or a distributed application, distributed solution we can call it, with a single data store. So I just want to quickly show you that this is developed in the previous episode. We will see some changes, a small change, nothing major. And this is as it is. I didn't touch because the golden rule of thumb is if something is working in production, do not touch it. So I went through that rule of thumb. I didn't touch anything. We discuss on bullet at point 4, and we'll see how the table exists in Azure. And also we'll see spend a minute in on Azure Data Studio, and then we'll come and we'll see the .NET 8 minimal API, which stores and retrieves the country's information. We'll see how it has been organized using layered architecture and how the .NET 8 is having less code, doing more functionality. And then we'll integrate all these three moving pieces, Python Flask, Azure OpenAI, and Blazor Server with .NET 8 minimal API. And then we will see how is that we are creating. I just created around the lunchtime. If you see the timestamp, somewhere it will be timestamped. I just created this Next.js 14, React 18, and we see TypeScript, everything is there. And this is what the gimmicks travels customers will see this. So that's the thing which we will be discussing today. So you guys have the solution, the source code here. So if you click on the source code, it will take you to the Tech Skills Academy, where this all the solutions are there. I have to check in the current solution, whichever I'm working on, the travels Node.js application, which I will be checking in by end of today or early morning tomorrow. I'll be checking in. Okay. So that's about this. Let's start going step by step. What is that we're going to discuss? So the big picture, we have seen that, and eventually this is going to be developed. RabbitMQ or asynchronous mechanism, a lot of things are going to come, but we'll take baby steps. Every month we'll add one feature, one simple feature, so that by couple of months or few months, it will be a decent distributed application. Okay, so what is the change? We will see that. So if I compare this, what was we having the code previously and what is that we were having now, I just want to show you. If I come in here, I go to the history, and you see that uh, what is that we had it versus if you see, we had that import OpenAI. Now we are having Azure OpenAI, and in the self, in the init, we used to use this object, OpenAI object, and we used to pass the parameters. Now we are passing using the Azure OpenAI constructor. We are passing these three parameters, and the fourth one, the model deployment model is coming in here. And you can see one more difference is OpenAI dot completion, C is capital, create is lowercase. But when we are using the client, which we are creating using the Azure OpenAI constructor or the class, we can see that now completions is in purely lowercase. Previously, it used to be completion. Now it is purely completions dot create. Create is in lowercase. That's the difference. And also, if you see the requirements dot txt, the versions also has changed. If you see that Azure Open AI is bringing in quite a few different guys because it has been bumped up, and we are seeing we are not seeing that AIO HTTP. It's bringing an entire different set of packages. Okay, that's the difference. So you can, that's the difference what I did it. So I'll show you that here. If you go to this link and select the Python, and we will be seeing that difference. If you're in the older package, you can use this .2.8, so it will be installing those things. And if you're using this OpenAI Python 1.x package, so we will be doing pip install, and it will not work when you are installing this on top of what we had in the previous month's episode. So how do we migrate that? There are a couple of ways to do it. Suppose if you see this, as I was mentioning, in the older package, we used to have OpenAI.completion.create. In the new package, the latest package, you will see the constructor. We have three parameters. And here, the deployment name, will give it as part of the model name. So how do we see that difference? We can come back here and go to the utilities where we have this, and you can click on this Azure OpenAI. We see this parameters, what all the parameters which we are sending in. If we come here, we are sending API version. You can come and check that API version and API key is here, and Azure OpenAI endpoint. So Azure endpoint here, Azure endpoint. So if it is the deployment, Azure deployment is the one which we are not using here in this latest syntax. And where you see that the completions, if you click on this client.completions, it clearly shows within the same object, we can see completions chart, embedding files, images, audio, all these models and fine tunings, streaming responses, everything is coming in there within the single client object. That client object is getting created with this Azure OpenAI class. Okay. And if you see, click on this create method, you can see that the create method, we are having the model, and they are clearly specifying what is the model which we can use. It's a string, and prompt and rest of the things which we can carry from the previous one. It's no difference, but the key difference is how we create and how we pass in the parameters. And another thing, this is from the previous session itself. It's not something new. os.getenv, we are bringing in from there, and that's the only thing which is something new here. And I have given all the instructions. How do you execute the Python on Windows, and how do we create the virtual environments? Let's see. We'll start this one. Let me deactivate it. It will be like this. So we will do first pip install, and then we will do the pip upgrade if needed, or else we'll do create the virtual environment. You can see that the virtual environment dot venv is already created, and then all we need to do is execute this one script for us to get into that. So I'll see that dot venv dot script dot slash script slash activate. We'll activate it. Now you can see the difference. We'll have dot .venv. So right now we are in the virtual environment. So you can do that pip list to see the package list over here, or you can do the pip freeze. Generally, pip freeze, we will pipe it to the requirements.txt so that it will be easy for other guys who are working in this. They can directly take this requirement.txt and they can do pip install -r and the requirements.txt. So what we do is pip install. So this is one. You can see pip install -r dot slash requirement.txt. That will go ahead and install it. Okay. So now let's quickly go ahead and see this Python and app.py. So when I send this Python app.py, it executes it, because at this point of time we are executing it in the developmental mode. We will be able to see a couple of the endpoints. It's not something new which we are doing it. Suppose if I send UAE as the parameter, so you can see that it goes and talks to the Azure OpenAI for the country, and it is returning United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi and few parameters. So this is the first piece in the equation. If you see that, this two pieces which we have seen Python Flask talking to this. So let's see how the Blazor is talking to it. So let's go to the next section. Let's go to the next section. Blazor, as I was mentioning, Blazor server, I didn't touch anything except we have added a new functionality that I will show you. What is that we have added? So when we come to this travels solution, the Blazor admin, it is in .NET 7. I was a little lazy to upgrade it to .NET 8, but eventually I'm going to do it before the next session for sure. So we had this previously to fetch the data. That was the functionality which we have seen in the previous session. But now, if you can see, we are injecting two different things. What are those two different things? You can see one thing is we have the Flask API endpoint as well as the .NET countries API. So those are two different pieces in the equation. So this Blazor admin is talking to Python Flask, which will interact with the Azure OpenAI to get the information whatever is needed. And at the same time, this Blazor admin application will speak to the .NET 8 minimal API to interact with the SQL Server. Now, if you see the Blazor server as a central piece, now it has got multiple microservices with which it is communicating. Even though I'm using high sounding words like distributed application, distributed architecture, or microservices, even though I am using high sounding words, these small pieces eventually will get converted into the microservices. So individually deployable, having a separate data store. As much as possible, we'll see. If we want to share a database, unfortunate situation, we might. But at this point of time, the intention and the plan is to have it as individual microservices. It takes time, but let's walk towards the other side of the tunnel to see the sunshine, but we'll walk slowly, no problem. So we see this, the server admin application is using two different endpoints. One is the Python Flask. You can see that line number 11, 12, 13, and 14. Another one is, it is also interacting with the .NET 8 minimal API. So line number 15, 16, 17, and 18 is interacting with this one. So if you see for this, where is the Python getting the content? It is getting the content from Azure OpenAI. So the data store is Azure OpenAI. The minimal API's data store is SQL Server. So two different data stores. And we are using both from the Blazor. So let's start. So this is the first piece. Here we are seeing the Blazor, sorry, the Python and Azure OpenAI is the first piece. We are seeing the second piece. So let me come in here and execute the second piece here. And let's give it a minute. There you go. So we can see I'm opening this and keeping it to the minimal over here, and we can go to the network tab. And this countries, I'm leaving it to the future session when we add the flags and other things, but those will be asynchronous. Nothing we will deal with synchronous, it's asynchronous. At this point of time, I already have created two of those countries, India and country one. As you have seen in the image, those two I already created. So you can see this India I already used and country one I already used it. So I mean country one I injected using the Postman, the Swagger, not through the end-to-end application. Through end-to-end application I used India. So we will use some other country now. So we will use Peru to go get the information. So this first set of information, if you see that, the Blazor server is talking to the Python Flask, which in turn speaking with the Azure OpenAI. So if you see, so 1, 2, 3. So these are the 3 touch points we have retrieved the information from. So now when I click save from here, this will go and get stored into the data store. So at this point of time, let me come back to the query. Right now I'll use select star from debut dot country information. So you can see right now there are 2 countries and it is coming from the gimmicks travels. We'll see the server and other things. For now, Peru information is not there. So right now I click on save. So it just, the beautification and everything, I'll do it a little later, but I'm taking baby steps, walking towards the bigger goal. If I come in here oh, I didn't execute the second piece. I'm sorry. It's my mistake. Okay, we should go step by step. So now what happened is we are speaking from Blazor. We are speaking with the Python Flask, which is going and talking with the OpenAI, and we got the information. Now this is the new piece, is the minimal API. So we'll stop here and we will see a couple of things before we come and execute it. The call have failed at this point of time. If you have seen it in the Blazor server, the call should have failed. We are trying to post it here. So here, the endpoint is not available. So the call would have failed it. So what I'll do is I will I'll come back over here and see this. It didn't respond properly. So the call has failed. So I'll stop this for the time being. We will see the other moving pieces. That's the section 4. So it's a very simple table, but eventually the table is going to grow because the table need to get few things at least. One, it needs the URL of the flag where the flag will get generated automatically through DALI. We'll fall back on the Azure OpenAI to generate the flag. So we'll not go search anywhere. So that's one thing. And also for each country, at least we need to get 1 or 2 tourist spots and store it in a different table or some other data store. I'm not sure at this point of time, but eventually this is going to get converted into a decent distributed application or microservices. High sounding words, I know that, but eventually this is going to convert into those things. So let's quickly see If I come back to the Azure portal, you can see that right now I am here in this one, and let me go to the query editor. So inside that, we can see the countries info, and I can do select star from. We see the same two information, one fictitious one which I have injected directly from the Swagger, and the other one I use the end-to-end integration just to ensure that all the moving pieces are working. So that's one thing. And the second thing is we can connect to the database. There are many ways we can connect. One is we can use Azure Data Studio. This is wonderful tool, cross-platform tool, which we can use it to interact with SQL servers and database. It's real good. I really like it. And you can use SQL Server Management Studio, or we can use VS Code. There are many different ways we can interact with the SQL store. So these are the two things which I am using. So the next big thing is the minimal API. So let's see the .NET 8 minimal API. So I'll come back over here, and let's quickly go through this one. So here, if you see, we are using .NET 8, and also we are using user secrets. So that means I don't need to worry about the credentials leaking out of this application, and that's one small tip. And another thing is, if you come and see the program.cs, the program.cs is very lean, and you can see there are two extension methods. So all the service container thing, I moved to one extension method. The HTTP request response pipeline, I moved it to another method. And as in the web APIs, we will have a controllers folder. Here I just created a endpoint folder. It's just a reorganization. I could have written everything in the same program.cs. No harm. Also, I can move that to a different folder. It's good organization. Okay. And I just wanted to show that using minimal API also we can have layered architecture. So our imagination is the limit for us. As we see in full-blown web APIs, there is we create that in all-in-one architecture, or layered architecture, or onion architecture, clean architecture, hexagonal architecture, whatever you name it. So similarly, when you're creating minimal API also, there is no restriction. I'm just showing that. One of the way is, now if you see the program.cs, I could have technically moved this to this one. I will do it by the next episode. I'll move this for sure. But if you see that, it's very lean. And now let's come back here and see all the service container. You see this, all the dependency injection are being loaded here. We have DB context, and we have the business logic layer, repository layers, and we have Swagger, we have Automapper, and we have CORS. Everything is being done here. So if you see in the program.cs, the line number 8 is doing the heavy lifting with the help of this extension method. All the service containers one. Now, if you see the HTTP request response pipeline, again, I moved it to another extension method. If you see that, that is happening in line number 13. So all the heavy lifting is being done by this HTTP request pipeline configuration extension method. So from the program.cs perspective, it looks very lean. That's one thing. And let's come back to the endpoints perspective. If you see that endpoints, we are exposing a couple of endpoints. One is which is the root, and this is coming from the application core. You can see that inside common, we have the welcome roots slash or slash API, and countries roots we have slash or slash API slash countries, and SQL DB connection, the countries DB connection. So including the connection string when we load it in the dependency injection, we are not hard coding. There are no magical strings. Okay, so if you come and see that, somewhere we will be using the this one. You can see that, so SQL DB connection string dot name. So including what is the connection string, we have moved it to the application core, and all the interfaces, business logic layer as well as the repository, those has been moved into the application core. And the entities, I moved it to this one. And one controversial thing what I did is the data transfer object. Technically, I should have kept it inside the countries.api. I don't know why I moved it. I moved it. I'll fix that because the DTOs are very specific to the client, or if it is I feel that it is very close. It has to get married to the API. So getting married with countries.data is a wrong decision. So I have to move that. So that's one thing. Apart from that, if you see that persistence is the DB context where we are building it. And one new thing you see that I'm using the primary constructor. So you can see that there is, you feel like there is no constructor here. Generally, we'll have that constructor with this name and the DB connection options, but .NET 8 feature is it's allowing us to have the primary constructor. So three less lines, three or more lines. One is two mustaches, and one the method definition. It's a method entry point and two mustaches. At least 3 lines less in .NET 8. Okay, so let's see what is this countries endpoint which is doing. We can see that there are two methods. One is add country and one is the get all countries. And there are a couple of things which we are using the name and allow anonymous. If you want to allow at this point of time, we are allowing anonymous, but we are going to tighten the screws and tighten the loose ends in coming months. Okay, and we can see that we are calling the business logic layer, and it calls the repositories and then the DB context, which we have already seen in the previous episode. I think I have a few minutes, which I can definitely show that how the interaction is happening. So who is the last man standing in the queue who gets constructed? We will see that. Before that, I would like to throw some slide on this one. This is the one slide. Yep, if you see that. So if you see the API, business logic layer, core, etc., and the data access layer, and then the last man standing is the DB context. So while generating the service container, the first guy who gets created is the DB context, then it gets injected in the repository, then it gets injected in the business logic layer, then it gets injected in the gRPC or API or endpoints. That's one important point. Let's see that in action now. So I'm coming to this persistence layer. I will place a debugger somewhere here. I'm little confused, or I don't know what should I call myself. Okay, I think that should hit because that's a constructor. We want to see that that's getting constructor. And now if you see that the here again, this should get constructed because the DB context will get injected in the repository. So I'll put a debugger here. And then the next thing is we'll come to the business logic layer. So that I'll put a debugger over here. And then at last, if you come and see the countries endpoint, we will use the get all countries. So just before hitting it, we will see that it's getting injected over here. Okay, so let me execute this. We will see that in action, how the dependency injection is getting loaded, and how is rest of the things are getting constructed. Okay, so let me come back over here. I did one simple mistake for sure. I could have put it here. Let me stop and restart that. Anyways, we have time. Let's go and see that. So at this point of time, if you see that services, there are 117 services here. And at this point of time, what I do is I'll put this in the watch. I'll put that in the watch, and you can see inside this watch, and it clearly shows that what is the count. And from the debugging perspective, .NET 8 is giving a beautiful future. And you can see that the moment I cross this line, and now the number of dependencies is 121. Previously, we used to come and expand it. Now the .NET has done an excellent job of doing this. Now you can see that 122, 123, and now AutoMapper 136. And now if you see that there are 138 dependencies which got loaded. I'll come in here, and you can see that if you go deep into the weeds, you will find all the things which we have created. You can see that our cars and our application dependencies, everything is getting loaded here. So this is the first piece, how the dependency injection is getting constructed. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. Okay, now I come in here. Now I do go and get the countries. Now the second piece is who is getting constructed. We said that the last man standing, if you see that this is the queue, the last man standing here is the DB context. So he will be constructed first. So we'll see that in action right now. So click on try and execute that. You see the endpoint it has hit. And as we discussed, the last man standing is a DB context. So that guy will get constructed and gets injected in the repository. It gets injected in the repository. You can see that. And then the repository will get constructed, gets injected in the business logic layer. It comes here. And then this guy gets constructed. Then comes the endpoint or controller. Now you can see that the business logic layer got constructed. And if you see that, the repository is there, and the repository has got the DB context. DB context has the parameters and other things, but it doesn't have any dependencies. Now, someone can definitely ask, hey, Swamy, we know that repositories and business logic layer we have created, but who has created logger and who injected it? So when we were seeing the service container creation, we saw that 117 dependencies which were coming out of the box. So I'm calling it out of the box or framework dependencies. I don't know, due to lack of terminology, I'm calling it as something dependencies. Some of the dependencies are coming out of the box without even we doing anything. So those things are out of the box. Anything we inject manually, that is, I'm calling it as application dependencies. I don't know whether the verbiage which I'm using is acceptable or not, but due to lack of terminology, I'm using it. So these dependencies, DB context and the business logic layer, repository layer, and the Swagger, AutoMapper, and CORS, these are the dependencies which we are loading it from our side. But if you see the dependencies, 117 dependencies which are coming out of the box. So I think we have spent a decent time to go through it. This is the layered architecture, and a little bit of separation of concern. If you see that persistence, it has got only the DB context, data has got only the entities. Marrying DTO to the data library was a wrong decision. API should marry this DTO. They should be closer to each other, so that I will fix it. Repositories is the one which has got dependency on the persistence. And again, if you see that the mapping profile is happening inside this, again, that might be one more controversial decision I would have taken, but I'm not sure. Then you can see the business logic layer and the application layer. And if you see the minimal API, even though we are using minimal API, there is no restriction. We can use everything, all the kinds of architectures or separation of concerns, everything. We did quite a few adventure over here. If you see that couple of extension method, one to service container and one to configure the HTTP pipeline and creating the folder called endpoints, very similar to API controllers. We have created an endpoint folder and moved the logic to its respective classes. And you can see, even though those are static classes, we have the routes, and I will fix that. I saw that when we use the API, we have slash API prefix. So I just wanted to use slash EP, means endpoint. So first two letters of those things, endpoint. Okay, so we have seen that. Now let's go ahead and do the integration or integration of these three pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we'll retrieve the information of one country. That goes to Python Flask, goes to Azure OpenAI, gets this information, gives it back to the minimal API.NET 8, which goes and stores it in the Azure SQL. So once again, abracadabra, we'll see that there are only 2 rows. Now let's start. The Python Flask is up and running. Now the next thing is, let me start the travels admin, gimmicks travels. Please visit the gimmicks travels for retrieving this. And let's get the information of England. So London capital state, it got this. Now what I'm doing is I'm starting the countries API. So this is the minimal API, .NET minimal API. Now you can see that at this point of time, we can do one more quick check to see that we will get those 2 country information. So right now we don't have the England's information in our database. Now I click on save. Now we'll see that here. This is travels. Oh, okay. So we are seeing that this is the minimal API. It got stored. So you can see that. And we will see the Blazor here. We can see that it hit the countries API and it received 200 information. So that means technically, if we come to the Azure Data Studio, we'll see 3 records. And just to be safer side, we will go and see that in this one also, we are seeing this. And I can come back to the Swagger. And at this point of time, before we saved the information, we had only 2 rows, 2 country informations. Now, if you see that, the country one is the one which I use the Swagger. But if you see that India and England, both it is retrieving. That's pretty cool. So from the big picture perspective, we can see that we saw the integration of Azure OpenAI, Python Flask, and .NET 7 Blazor to .NET 8 minimal API to Azure SQL. All these things which you have seen. Now we'll see the gimmicks travels customer application. So admin application is separate and the customer application is separate. I just wanted the concerns to be separate. Okay. Still, we can use the claims and show some buttons, disable some buttons. We can do all kind of things, but I just wanted to keep it a little separate. Okay. Now let's enter the world of Next.js and React. So we have seen this. We have seen this integration also. We have seen that. And let's start with this React 18 Next.js 14. Okay. So I just created this couple of hours ago. Timestamp is around lunchtime. So it's created it, and so we'll go through this step by step. I mean, whatever is best possible in 10 minutes, we'll go through that. And thanks to Neil Cummins, from whom I have learned this Next.js. Two people, Satyaprakash Reddy and Neil Cummins. I watched their video courses and learned. So whatever I'm showing it, credit goes to them and Peter Kellner, three people for sure for this one. So if you create this React.js, purely it is coming from the Next.js. If you come and start with this, you can create npx create Next.js latest. It creates, and it's going to ask quite a few things, whether to use the TypeScript ESLint and Tailwind CSS and all these things which are coming in. Let's use one more record so that we will see, or that we will see live how it will be. Okay, so a little bit of highlights I will be showing in, and something we will see on demand basis. Npm run dev, and this is running. Everything is running. Okay, I think we will learn while we earn kind of thing. We will be doing that. So it's building this. Few of the things which I learned, I will share those tips and tricks. It will be pretty easy to work with those, and I will show that issues which we will face. So I will click on that. So this is the admin application, and whatever we will be seeing here is the customer application. So it compiles. It will be fast, blazingly fast. If you see the Blazor Server, .NET 8 Blazor Server, or Angular, or React, or Vue, nowadays it's like a competition, like who is blazingly fast, and everyone is working pretty hard to bring good experience to the customers and the users, and they are doing a pretty good job on that one, I'm sure on it. Right now it has compiled, and you can see that it's just shell, which I have used it. Let me see that. Is it throwing any error? No. So here also it is no. So let's see. Technically, it should get the countries info. It's not Blazor. It should be here. So did it come? Oh, it took some seconds. We'll see that. Let me re-execute that. Let me open the... Okay, so you can see that it went and it brought 3 countries which were there. So now we can see that integration with all these 6 moving pieces. Let's see that and again come back, and I'll give you some of the tips and tricks and the issues which I faced it. So you can see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so the first thing I would like to give is one of the things which I learned from the course from Neil Cummins is on this aspect ratio and how to include this plugin. And apart from that, the key thing is when we are using the images, if you see these, images, whatever these images, whichever is these images, they are coming from the placeholder. If you see the placeholder image, if you go to this placeholder, there are lots of images which you can create it for free in different formats. So if you are using this images, we need to add one of these tags here. I mean, the previously it used to be under images, domains, and you can give different domains. But right now it is using a different format. So if I go ahead and comment this, if I go ahead and comment this and come back and refresh this, technically we should see some issues. It should not display the images. If it is displaying, then we are lucky, and if it is not displaying, then we are good. We are able to replicate the issue. Why is that? Okay, what I'll do is I will go ahead and cut this. Okay, I will go ahead and cut this, and let's quickly come back over here to go ahead and make another call. It's doing a compilation one more time, and let's give it a few seconds. So technically it's not displaying, but actually it was throwing an error until I add this one also. If I come in and see that, the placeholder, the protocol, including the domain name, which we need to add it to this Next.js. So that's one important thing. Let's see. Wow. Did I do something now? We came in here and we came in here and we didn't touch anything. For the benefit of doubt, I will kill it and I'll start another instance. Sometimes I don't know why. What did I do? So I'm taking a benefit of doubt and restarting it again. Okay, there you go. It compiled and it's making a call, and we can see that here in the API. So it should have received the content, or we can see that in this one also. Here it should show the output of what is that it received, the country's information which it has received. You can see that it received 3 countries information. So you can see that 3 countries it has populated. Okay, and the second thing, a few things is like if you see the headers, this is the nav bar, and the logo and search. Each individual piece has been broken into this one. So you can see that the logo and the search bar and the login button. Like if you see these 3 pieces, this is the logo, this is the search box, and this is the login button. I mean, Neil Cummins explains this in a pretty good fashion, and the way he breaks the pieces and creates it is also good. So it is the copycat of one of the application which he created. It's purely credit goes to him on this one. Okay, so let me come back and let's add one more record. Where is that? Okay, so we have India, England. Let's bring United Arab Emirates, UAE. So I said get information. You see that we have given here, and let me go ahead and save this information. It would have saved it. We'll directly go ahead and test the customer application, the gimmicks travel. At this point of time, I don't have any other option to do a refresh. Technically, Signaler is a right candidate for this one. You can see that United Arab Emirates is the one which it is coming and it is showing. So you can see this integration which is happening between all these moving pieces. The key thing is we are speaking with the Azure OpenAI to bring in like little bit of beautification and the labeling, other things are there. As I was mentioning, the intention is to create this as a um, decent enterprise grade. I don't want to call enterprise, it's a high sounding words, at least a distributed application or a microservice application. If you see right now in front of us, whatever is there itself is a microservices, because we are dealing with minimal API and the Blaze and Python Flask and Blazor Wasm and React, Next.js and React, Azure OpenAI and SQL Azure. So there are quite a few moving pieces. Now, what is next? We did this, we tried it. We can try one more country just to kill the time. I just wanted to see that how does it look if I have the fifth one. It comes to the next. What is that? I have it. France. Let's go and get the details of France. And France, Paris. It added. And let me come back to the gimmicks, travels, Next.js and React. And there you go. We have the fifth card. It's flashing. Okay. So what is next? Let's come and see this. So just wanted to add one piece. At least 2-3 pieces can be done, but I just want to add one more piece, which will be we'll be having this session somewhere in Feb. So what we will be doing is, at this point of time, when the record gets added, when we send this information, it adds a record. Now we don't have the country flag, the flag for each of those countries. So if at all we are unable to generate the country, we can use this one placeholder image. But we'll be using, again, we will add more functionality to this microservice, which it should have a capability to go ahead and generate the flag of any given country using the Azure OpenAI. That's what is coming next. So when we use this solution in the next episode, so what we'll be having is we'll enhance this Python Flask so that it goes and talks to DALI and creates an image, and somehow we need to pass that it should be asynchronous. I mean, I'm not expecting the admin of this application to stare at the screen for 2-3 seconds or 5 seconds or 8 seconds to generate the flag. No, I don't want to do that. So the moment I drop it, there should be an asynchronous enterprise service bus or RabbitMQ or some kind of queue mechanism where I drop it, and that goes and talks to this worker processee, goes and talks to the Python Flask, generates the UI, goes and updates. So whenever the customer application or the server application, because on the server application also we have a page which is under construction. So how many countries we have generated, it should show in a tabular form, because here in the customer application we are using a grid form where we are having multiple cards. So let's show it in a different format here to the admin application. Okay, so that's what is going to come next. I don't know how I'm going to do, but I'm trying to hit that. With that, I think I will stop the session here, and I think back to you, Rashmita. Do we have any queries or?
I think we don't have any questions at the moment, Swami. So,
Okay.
folks, if you have any questions later, please feel free to reach out to Swami. And also, I would uh, request you to scan the QR code right now, and you'll see how Microsoft for Startup Founder Hub helps startups speed up innovation by giving access to top AI services, expert advice, and the essential technology to build a future proof startup. With this, I think we are at the end of our show. Thank you, Swami, for hosting once again. And thank you all for joining us today. Also, please visit Microsoft Reactor website for more upcoming session. Feel free to use the Learn module links shared in the chat section. This will give you access to take your learning further. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, folks. Thanks so much.